What's up, everybody? Lou Orlando, Brian Rabacs, Will Tallant, your three New York Yankees beat reporters gathered here in December. Why? Because the Yankees traded for Juan Soto, one of the biggest moves the Yankees have made in a really long time. They get one of the best young bats in the game right now. Juan Soto is going to be in the Yankee lineup. Yankee Twitter is happy about it. We're happy about it. We're gathering here to talk about it. I just want immediate reactions. Take me through your immediate reaction, how you feel about it. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
So when looking at the Yankees' needs after the 2023 season, they needed a ton of help offensively. This was one of the worst lineups in the entire season for the duration of April to September. The whole way through, it was just a terrible lineup, especially without Aaron Judge. So you needed to add to it, right? And you needed help specifically in the outfield and particularly a left-handed bat. And Brian Cashman addressed this, that they wanted to go for not one, but two left-handed bats, especially with the injury to Jason Dominguez. And we'll get into a couple of the other deals that they've made this offseason as well. But for Soto specifically, it felt like these two sides were going to come together, the Yankees and the Padres, and get a Soto deal done. The Yankees had the pieces necessary to get a trade done, and the Padres were in a really tough pinch where they had to get rid of Soto. They didn't really have a choice, and the Padres liked what the Yankees had, and obviously Juan Soto filled a need for the Yankees, so overall the two sides came together, and now a lot of the excitement that was lost after a pretty mediocre 2023 season seems to be back with the addition of Juan Soto in New York.
Yeah, the Padres were the ultimate trading partner for actually, I should say the Yankees were the ultimate trading partner for the San Diego Padres. The Yankees had everything, and, no bias here. The package that they sent the Padres, if you look at any other teams that would be in contention for Juan Soto, I don't know if there was another trade package that could have gone against what the Yankees gave for Juan Soto. Some of the names in there, Michael King, obviously the headliner, he'll be more of an immediate impact kind of guy for the Padres. Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, guys that aren't tremendously big right now, but, they weren't too bad. They showed a lot of flashes for the Yankees last year, so some impactful arms going the Padres' way. The Yankees had what it took to make a deal done as soon as they could, and they had to pounce on it too with the Blue Jays' impending decision of everything going down with Shohei Ohtani. If they missed out on him, which they did, are they going to pivot to Soto? A lot going on, but to answer your question further, Lou, it's something that the Yankees have had to do for the last few years. They haven't been able to get over the hump of beating the Houston Astros this year. They didn't even have the opportunity of beating the Houston Astros. Obviously, the Rangers won, but the Astros are who you want to beat. They haven't had anybody that has been able to take them over the top. They've made other moves that haven't necessarily been that move. This is a kind of move that you say, all right, we're adding a kind of guy that changes lineups, not just we're getting another guy to add to our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. No, this is Aaron Judge's second guy right now. I know you only get a year of him, but it should be a pretty
potentially
fun year.
Only a year.
We'll see.
Right, it's been an active offseason for the Yankees. They also traded for Verdugo, but we'll stay with Soto. And, Will, because you mentioned what they gave up, I'll just give you the full package right now. Yankees get Juan Soto and Trent Grisham. Padres acquire Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. We'll get into that stuff later, but the Yankees put together a package of guys that they really didn't want to give up, especially King and Thorpe, but clearly Brian Cashman making a move to do whatever it takes to get a guy like Juan Soto that, Will, you said, that's a game changer. This is fully one of the best hitters in the MLB, one of the best young hitters in the MLB. You can dive into the stats when you look at what he did last year. Played in every single game, 162 games played, 35 home runs, 109 RBIs, OPS 930, on-base percentage 410, and a lot of people consider that a down year. When you look at Juan Soto's tenure with the Padres, there are probably a lot of Padres fans that feel like he underperformed what his expectations were. And because his expectations are ridiculously high. His last 2 years in Washington, he was probably the best hitter in the National League, or if not right up there in that conversation. So all the things that you guys kind of mentioned with needs for the Yankees, the offense had been struggling the last couple of years. Felt like the Yankees front office hadn't been willing to admit that. They had gone really right-handed heavy outside of that one halfway through the year where they traded for Gallo and Rizzo and kind of admitted, hey, we need lefties. But then they went away from it last year, and you didn't have a ton of dynamic lefties in the lineup where Now you add one of the best lefties in baseball right now, and you probably get to put him right behind Aaron Judge. And I think that's another thing is Aaron Judge last year, not a ton of protection when he was healthy. You put one of the best hitters and one of the best eyes in the game right behind Aaron Judge.
Yeah, protection is so huge for Judge. When you look at the way the lineup was constructed last year, it was Judge, but then you look, it's behind him, it's Rizzo who struggled for a little bit, or Gleyber Torres. But like when it comes to that, you're going to take your chances with the hitter after Aaron Judge. But now you don't necessarily have that option because it's going to be Judge hitting second and then Juan Soto hitting third. You can't have a pick your poison moment if you're a pitcher. You have to go after somebody. So it's a really, really daunting task for these opposing pitchers. And this Yankee lineup, I mean, they're going to hope that this does a whole method to making them better. And me and Will had the opportunity to sit in on the Brian Cashman Zoom availability the day after that this trade was finalized and announced, and he kept bringing up the fact that this kind of reinstilled the Steinbrenner DNA, where he felt that the best players in baseball should be playing for the New York Yankees, and they want to make this the mecca of baseball. And I know that it's a little uncertain with Juan Soto because there is a chance that he is with the Yankees for 1 year and then he signs somewhere else in free agency because he's a Scott Boras client, and they typically wait until free agency for the market to set rather than signing an extension. So it's a bit of a gamble, but with the way that the Yankees were kind of in a pinch where they needed to make a move, they feel that it's worth taking the risk, and they're getting the best players, and they're putting them on the field in pinstripes and in the Bronx.
And in that Zoom, too, very important to know, I felt like this was probably one of the more important things that he kind of emphasized, he being Brian Cashman, emphasized throughout this Zoom, how focused he and his brass is on 2024. Very clearly, this is for 2024. You can't project where he's going to go after. You, as Brian Cashman, needed to make a move to please the fans here, because last year was just a complete abomination. Aaron Judge is gone after signing that huge contract, and the absence that he has on that lineup, we all know. I don't even think we need to get into it. I still think, even now, if he goes down, it's still like with Juan Soto, a huge hole not having Aaron Judge just because he's that good of a hitter. But Brian Cashman was very adamant on this offseason being for 2024. Alex Verdugo, expiring contract. Trent Grisham, not an expiring contract, but getting to that age based on when he was called up. Free agency, arbitration is starting to become a little more expensive just because he continues to make major league rosters and just, working your way up in the system. So guys that are getting closer to free agency. So they're really going after 2024. No move to me has signified that they're looking for the future right now. If Yamamoto comes into the question, for sure. But Juan Soto, as of right now, is a Yankee for 1 year, and they're going for it this year.
And before I can, not to cut you off,
No, go for it.
But with Juan Soto only having 1 year left on his contract, obviously you don't know where he's going to go following this 2024 season with the Yankees. But if you want to potentially get him to sign long-term, it's probably easier to do that by giving him a year to realize what New York is like. And with that, they can let him kind of see if he wants to stay here. So it's easier to get Juan Soto long-term now that you have him already rather than just signing him in free agency. And again, we don't know what they're going to do with Yamamoto. There's still some reports that the Yankees are very interested in still pursuing him, but overall, the Yankees offseason is off to a scorching hot start.
I think it remains to be seen whether or not they'll continue to be this aggressive in years moving forward, but I think tough to blame them for treating 2024 this aggressively when you look at, hey, you're in the prime of Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. Right, you're right smack in the middle, maybe the back half of their primes where Garrett Cole has won a Cy Young, Aaron Judge has been one of the best hitters in the league for the last few years. They're not getting any younger. So that window of them being at their best only going to last for so long that, you might as well take advantage of it while you have generational talents. And I think let's get into the package a little bit because not for nothing, the Yankees did deplete themselves.
Luke, can I jump in real quick?
Oh,
though?
get in here.
Real quick
Yeah,
about
jump
something.
right in.
Because what you just said it sparked something in me.
Oh, sure.
I think it's also another move critical in not being lapped again. And what I mean by lapped, the Red Sox already did that to you. The Baltimore Orioles, now you have to compete with them. They were good and then really bad, and now they're good, and the Yankees have yet to make a World Series since that has gone down. So that just sparked me. The Yankees cannot get lapped, and by making a trade like this, especially a 10-year lap. Boston was like 3 or 4 seasons, and then they were ahead of the Yankees, but the Orioles were so bad, and now they're good. And the Yankees still haven't made a World Series since then.
I mean, talk about getting lapped. I think the way that not to get off a tangent, but the way the Yankees are perceived right now in baseball, I think their image in the media has taken a huge hit. And in the baseball world where, Brian, you talk about, returning the Yankees to that Steinbrenner era of like, this is all the big players are supposed to want to play for the Yankees. I'm not sure that's the way things are right now. Last year, I think people took advantage of the Yankees while they were down as a chance to kind of knock on that organization. You have guys like Ben Ruda coming out and kind of exposing some of their flaws. And not for nothing, I'm not sure if all of that, isn't probably maybe spot on or at least somewhat accurate, where I think the way the Yankees have been doing things the last few years is probably flawed, and they're probably not viewed as prestigious as they've been in past years and past decades. You look how aggressively they played this trade where, I mean, we heard reports the weeks leading in that they didn't want to give up Michael King or Drew Thorpe. They ended up giving both, and along with Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, you throw in Kyle Higashioka, but that is a huge hit to your pitching depth. That's probably 4 of your top 8 starters and probably none of the top 4, but Michael King looked really good at the end of last year, switching into that starter role, and had been one of your best relievers for multiple years now. That's a huge loss. Drew Thorpe is a prospect. I think that's the one I have the easiest time parting with him. Vasquez and Brito. Vasquez I was big on last year. He was fun, but
I liked
listen,
him too.
That's what pitching depth is. You have that talent. You're able to give away to acquire a guy like Juan Soto, but the Yankees are going to have to probably go out and get some pitching depth now, and they put themselves in a little bit of a tough spot with rotation. If injuries come up, you're banking on Nestor and Rodon bouncing back, but that's the price you pay to get even just a year of Juan Soto.
Yeah, well, this is something that Jack Curry of the Yes Network was stressing numerous times when talking about this Juan Soto deal, is that to get someone like Soto, the caliber player that he is, the Yankees were going to have to give up assets that it was going to sting a little bit, and that's exactly what we had. Now, the Padres, again, didn't have a lot of leverage in this situation where they were financially kind of had to get rid of Juan Soto, but at the same time, you're still getting a player like Juan Soto. You're not going to get him for just cheap. And initially, the Padres wanted 7 players from the Yankees. Brian Cashman and his staff were able to limit that down to 5, but still, yeah, you look at...
I think it's cool. You didn't have to give up Dominguez or Volpe or, the guys you probably consider your top prospects.
And he brought that up.
Yeah,
he
it's
did
funny
bring that up.
Oh, I read
Cashman said that, yeah, we didn't give up Volpe or Dominguez, but it didn't stop the Padres from asking.
He said, to quote him, the industry understands how greatly they value both Volpe and Dominguez on their current rosters. So now think about it. A year ago, there were rumors of Brian Reynolds being traded for both of them, and now they're not even in contention to be in a package for Juan Soto. That's pretty unbelievable to me. But obviously, another name hasn't been talked about at all, Oswald Peraza. Not a peep.
Yeah.
Was not going in this trade, and the Yankees still got it done. Very interesting. I thought Verdugo was going to get flipped in this trade with...
that was something that we were musing about together.
Yeah, they needed another major league talent, and Verdugo would have fit right in for the Padres. Keep that lineup pretty balanced. Still pretty competitive.
Spencer Jones' name was thrown out there a couple times,
and didn't even end up in the package. They went so pitcher heavy and got Kyle Higashioka because they DFA'd Austin Nola, his brother. Yeah,
and it's obviously there's a couple of soft spots that you have here when looking at some of these players. Obviously, Michael King, with the way that he closed out 2023 as a starting pitcher, you had a lot of confidence in him going into the 2024 season in that rotation. So losing him, if you're a Yankee fan, that hurts. But Kyle Higashioka, He's been in this organization for,
16
years now.
He's been a long
16
time.
full years.
It's the only organization he's ever been a part of, and it's just when he's been there for that long. I mean, obviously,
Since he was 19.
It's emotional to just.
There's a chance
somebody
he
up
was
like
part of the
that.
organization before Brett Gardner.
I think he was.
There's a chance.
Actually, no. I think
Or at least
Gardner came
I
in
think he
He
was
was
part-
on the major league
Before
roster.
he was part of the organization before Brett Gardner made his major league debut.
That I agree with. Yeah, I think so.
I think that might be right.
I think you might be onto something there.
So yeah,
That's crazy.
trades like this, they're not easy. And even someone like Drew Thorpe, who had a great year in the minor leagues last
Had
season.
a great mustache too. I was
Yeah.
I
Did
was
have a
big on
great
him. Kids got
mustache.
moxie.
But again, when it's to get Juan Soto, even a year of Juan Soto, the Yankees, they clearly believe that this trade is worth it, and we're willing to do what it took to make that happen.
Yeah, Thorpe I think is the easiest, as you said, to
He's
part
the easiest
with
to
here.
part with
I
because
thought
we didn't know
his-
him that well.
Yeah, I thought he had a great season, but at the end of the day, you know what his season kind of reminded me of? It was a little bit better than this guy. Could be a total Chance Adams situation all over again. What did they do? They held on to Chance Adams and didn't go out and get Manny Machado, and now look at Manny Machado. He's always a top 10 MVP candidate. I know he had a down year this year, but they actually got rid of someone that they were gatekeeping for a person that solves a huge problem for them, makes their biggest weakness probably their most valuable strength.
This is Cashman doing what I think his harshest critics always criticize him for, which is prospect hugging. I mean, think of all the trades that were held up because he didn't want to get rid of Miguel Andujar, Clint Frazier, guys like that, where it's like, and listen, at the time, I'm sure there were a lot of Yankee fans that were really high in Miguel Andujar's trajectory, and then you look at a couple years down the line, not with the organization, completely flopped out, where, yeah, it's not always a bad idea to sell on prospects when they're high because it's not a guarantee that they'll ever turn out to be anything like Juan Soto. Found some tidbits. Juan Soto has never had an MLB season with an on-base percentage below 400. 3-time All-Star, he's finished in the top 10 MVP 3 times. And you get Trent Grisham, who, I mean, one of the things that we were sneaky wondering about was, what's the center field situation going to be for the Yankees? And is it going to be Judge? Is it going to be Verdugo? It seems like the starting outfield is going to be Verdugo, Judge, Soto, and it'll be Judge and Verdugo splitting time in center field. You get Trent Grisham, a guy that probably a below average bat, but plays elite defense in center field. Rob Diesel may have a home run this year at Yankee Stadium, so a guy that really adds a lot as your fourth outfielder. And I think Yankees have clearly liked center field defense. That's why they got Bader, and Bader was fun for that year and change. But you get a guy that's going to be your fourth outfielder that plays elite defense in center field. I think that's cool too.
Well,
Yeah, and
Cashman, he confirmed that Judge.
He said that if
is
opening
going to be
day
the
was
opening day
today,
starting.
Judge will be the opening day center fielder.
Yep.
And no one's concerned with how Aaron Judge is going to play as a defender in center field because I'm sure after seeing him in 2022 and in parts of 2023, everyone's very comfortable watching Aaron Judge play center field. The issue is his health going to stand up because he's coming off of that toe injury, and that's going to be at least a concern. But in the Yankees' eyes, Will, as we heard in the press conference, it's apparently resolved and not an issue anymore.
That's exactly what Cashman said too. The confidence that he had in that answer, I was very much, I don't want to say surprised because if I was Cashman in that situation, I would have answered the same way. You want to have obviously the utmost amount of confidence for what you're going to have going out on the field, especially after making a move like this. But the confidence was it was flowing. He said, "We think he's fine. We think he's resolved," meaning the toe problem. That issue is behind him. I know he's excited. Judge obviously was very good in center field, and it looked like he was really enjoying himself out there. He really likes playing outfield. He's an incredible defender. Me personally, I'm a little concerned with how many games they'll get out of him if he's going to play 80+ in center field before Dominguez comes back. That's my really just own concern is how much wear and tear is that going to have? If that means they're going to have to sit him more often than they'd like to rotate him and Grisham in there, maybe Verdugo gets some reps. We'll see who they end up. They're going to bring somebody on board for spring training as well. Like there's going to be guys in the outfield.
Florial will be in the mix, but he's not going to be a starter.
Of course, yeah, but I can't envision Judge playing like 80-something games before Dominguez comes back full time as the center fielder. They gotta save him as much as they can.
Aaron Judge, 78 games played in center field in 2022 during the MVP year.
It makes it enticing.
Right. Not for nothing. Hey, you do this to get Verdugo, Judge, and Soto in the outfield all at the same time. Juan Soto's not the best defender you'll ever see. Verdugo's pretty solid, but I think not really a center fielder type, although he can play it. Aaron Judge is a good center fielder and elite right fielder. So you are, I think, losing something in the defensive metrics when you slide him over to center field. But, hey, you make that work. And a guy that we haven't really talked about a ton, but I think it's part of this conversation about this new-look Yankees outfield is that Alex Verdugo is going to be part of this outfield for the New York Yankees this season. It's another lefty bat. It's a guy that, hey, numbers don't pop off the page the way Juan Soto's do, but a very solid hitter that has been league average or above league average the last 5 seasons, going back to his last year in LA and then the last 4 at Boston. He's either been 100 OPS plus or above. Good bat, doesn't strike out a ton. I think going to add some nice length to this lineup and probably the type of bat that I think Yankees fans have been wanting to see more of in years past.
Yeah, I think he complements the rest of the lineup well, where you're going to have your power hitters in Judge and Soto and Stanton. But when you add someone like Verdugo, one of the things that they mentioned, like great bat-to-ball skills. He can make contact, and he's not really a home run hitter. 13 home runs, 11 home runs.
Hits home runs in Yankee Stadium
last
though.
season. Yeah, but that's the thing. That short porch. I think everyone's saying that the short porch is going to be great for Juan Soto. How can you not love him with the short porch? But a guy like Verdugo, I think it's tailored to him better.
Yeah, I mean,
he can get some cheapies, if you will, or porch a couple of them. Yeah. So I think that the Verdugo ad is really exciting and encouraging for this lineup, and then also he plays pretty solid defense in left field too. So if he's the left fielder the whole season, then I think you're looking at an outfield of Verdugo, Judge, and Soto. And are you going to find a better outfield than that in Major League Baseball?
No, it's pretty tough. It's a really, really solid outfield. This Verdugo trade just really lines up very nicely for the Yankees. Whether he went for Soto or not, they kept him. I think it's perfect. This is a kind of hitter that the Yankees needed another one of. I look at him as kind of like a Rizzo guy, but since Rizzo has come over, he hasn't been that same kind of slash line guy that we've seen him as with the Cubs. Obviously, he's a little older than Verdugo, but what I mean in terms of this Rizzo comparison, very competent average, very good on-base percentage. That's a good slash line. The OPS, not over 800. That's the kind of power numbers that you want to see in your lineup. But I can live with a 745, especially with a slash line of 264, 324, and 421. I can live with that. I think that's a very competent left fielder. He's had seasons where he's even batted in the 280s and gotten on base closer to 400. So I think this is a very complete piece for the Yankees to add to their lineup, and it's just like not a question mark. You're not throwing Jake Bauers, Billy McKinney, Oswaldo Cabrera, Willie Calhoun, just the whole transition, the whole rotation.
I was going to say that. Think about the guys that the Yankees had to run out in the outfield this year because of the hit that the outfield depth took early on, where we saw so much of Jake Bauers in the outfield. We saw so mumuch of Willie Calhoun. I like Billy McKinney, but you saw a lot of Willie McKinney where it seemed like there was a concentrated effort to shore up that depth a little bit, where, hey, you still have guys like Florio's on the bench. Stanton, I'm sure in an emergency situation, they'd probably be able to throw it in left or right field. And Dominguez, when he gets healthy halfway through the year, that you're still going to have options and depth pieces. But you have 3 starters in your outfield plus Trent Grisham that you feel very confident with having in that general rotation.
Yeah, I think health is going to be what really becomes the point of emphasis for the Yankees this year. That's the only thing that can deteriorate this lineup and this outfield from being as big of a force as it can be. It's a matter of whether or not all these guys can stay healthy, and the Yankees have always had issues with injuries for the last couple of years, even like in spring training last year, and then Stanton getting hurt again last season, and then Judge having the freak injury at Dodger Stadium. So health is going to be very important, but if this outfield stays healthy, the Yankees could be a real juggernaut this year, but it all comes down to whether or not it can stay that way. Now, if they don't, then there's still some pieces that you can mix in there, but they have to find the depth that's required. Do they bring back Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who can play anywhere on the field
And
provide
pitcher.
any sort of depth. Hey, the market for two-way players right now is
Shohei just got
through the
$700
roof.
million, so I think we're looking at $750 for IKF.
Yeah, just around that range, I would say.
But he'll only get $1 million per year.
I
All
think it's
deferred
Right.
money.
Oh
I
my
think it's
God.
a tough conversation with IKF, unfortunately, now, because a guy that I can immediately say will replace him is Oswaldo Cabrera. He plays everywhere, and he's a switch hitter. Why would you pay IKF $7 or $8 million, which I think it could be even closer to 10 because he's played for a few years now? How can they bring someone like that back? I would love for him to come back because he can play all these positions, and this utility role they had him in, it worked out great for the Yankees. Obviously, the result wasn't there, but if they were a winning ball club and had someone like IKF, he's so valuable. But now, there's limited spots. I think Cabrera takes that spot so easily, and it could, give him a little bit of rejuvenation as well.
I mean, and Yankee fans aren't going to want to hear this after they traded for Juan Soto, but I do think you have to keep the luxury tax in mind where you take on Soto's $30 million, even with, some of the money coming off the books and some of the contracts that have expired. And if you want to be in the running for Yamamoto, that's going to be big time money that AAV is going to go against your cap. And listen, I think the Yankees are clearly, looking like they're going to go over the Cohen tax, but every million you go over, that's added penalties where it's not like they're just going to want to go over by a huge margin. They're going to want to stay, relatively close to it, even if they go over to minimize the penalties, where I think probably means letting a guy like IKF walk in favor of some of your younger guys that still have that, positional ability to play multiple positions, outfield, infield, stuff like that.
The only kind of thought that's kind of entered my mind now following the Soto trade and seeing how the outfield is set up with Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton as the DH, obviously, is that what do they do exactly when Jason Dominguez comes back? Is he going to be healthy in 2024? Because I think the initial estimate that they gave back was 8 to 10 months when he got the surgery, which would
They'll put him at July.
Put him at July. So then if July comes, everyone's healthy, and Jason Dominguez is ready, what do you do? The Yankees are they have their hands tied a little
You got
bit.
to look at Stanton there. You have to. I think Stanton is the. Unfortunately, I can't believe he's been here for 6 years, and this was Soto definitely a much better player, but this was the Soto move for the Yankees 6 years ago, and now it's just they have not accomplished what they wanted to do. But now we're having those kind of conversations about Giancarlo Stanton, where it's is that a guy that gets put on waivers, that gets DFA'd? Will he have trade value at that point when Dominguez comes back? He would be the guy to unload, send him somewhere where he gets more playing time, eat some of his money, because that's where it's going to go. Judge is just going to end up taking over for Giancarlo when he becomes a free agent. So I think Giancarlo is going to be looked at the heaviest here. I really would like to see him play well. Really, really would love to see that. However, that could in turn be his demise in New York, where they ship him off because they'll have value for him.
I think he's primed for a bounce back. I think that's just off of vibes because that last season was so tough for him. But I think it kind of is, screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. Where
exactly.
If he's struggling and you have a chance to get Dominguez back in the rotation where you can have him be your everyday center fielder and move one of Soto, Verdugo, and Judge to DH, or even rotate the three, that I think the Yankees could potentially leap at that opportunity. The tough thing about that, though, is that with Verdugo and Soto on expiring contracts, do you give up on a guy like Stan that has, could be there for a while, but, if he's doing really well and has value, then maybe the Yankees do see to take advantage of it. I like to think that there is a future for Giancarlo Stanton here. I think that's optimistic because it's looking more and more with that contract and where it is, and really he's shown his inability to play in the outfield just because of his inability to stay healthy, that it puts you in a real tough spot, and he's really blocking a lot of those outfield lanes, especially once Dominguez comes back. I also think you'll see the Yankees be cautious with Dominguez and easing him back in. He's not going to take over as a starting center fielder right away. If Dominguez comes out the gate hot the way he did towards the end of this year, he's going to force the Yankees into some real uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, the Yankees can be careful with him. That's the luxury. He's
even
only 21 years old.
A guy like Grisham affords you that depth too, where it's
Exactly.
Grisham's defense center field. You can
Two-time
you can
Gold
be
Glover.
so slow with Dominguez, and if he struggles, I mean, how much does that really hurt you?
Yeah, I don't think I've chimed in enough about the Trent Grisham trade. I think that was a tremendous ad for the Yankees because the way that they said they were going to utilize him just makes perfect sense. He's going to be a late defensive replacement. That active lineup spot that he used to have in San Diego isn't really there for him anymore because the batting. I mean, he's got like a Schwarber batting average. If he was hitting home runs like Schwarber, it'd be different. But he's not.
Right.
So the way that they're going to utilize him, I think, is perfect. But when Dominguez comes back, man, I think the Yankees don't have to rush him because he'll only be 21. If they want him to sit the rest of the year or just sit the whole year and rehab and wait until he is fully healthy, maybe even have him play in AAA because he has plenty of options. Let him do half a season in AAA because he hasn't played there that much, and just let him get reps. Let him ease back into being the starting center fielder. It's all really going to depend on when he's fully ready to come back, where the Yankees are in that point of the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that come as a result of this Juan Soto deal. There's a lot that the Yankees, they are going to kind of have to figure out in the long term. I think for the start of the year and how they kind of hit the ground running, they have that sort of game plan established. They know what it's going to look like. They know who's going to play where for the most part offensively. Now, the rest of the offseason, I would guess, is just focused more towards pitching. Are they going to get Yamamoto? If they don't, where do they pivot? They have to figure all that out because pitching depth, Brian Cashman straight up said in the Zoom press conference, yes, pitching depth is now the biggest area of need for the Yankees. So we can talk about all this outfield stuff and how it's going to position things when this guy comes back and stuff like that. But the Yankees, they're going to need to upgrade this pitching staff, and that's something that's going to have to be done. But for right now, Juan Soto is a Yankee, and this move is the jolt in the arm that the Yankees needed after just a lifeless 2023 season.
Real quick, and they made a move today. It didn't do anything with the rotation, but it did help their bullpen a little bit. Dodgers needed to clear up a 40-man spot for Ohtani, so the Yankees and the Dodgers make a trade. The Yankees trade first-round pick Trey Sweeney. He was drafted in 2021, so we got him a couple years ago. They trade him for Victor Gonzalez, lefty bullpen piece, could potentially replace Wandy Peralta if they don't want to bring him back, or either way, just a lefty in the bullpen. And you get Jorbit Vivas, who is international signing by the Dodgers, was their 12th prospect in the system, becomes the top 10 prospect in the Yankees system. So a neat little move there. I think the most interesting thing coming out of that was that you got an Eli Fishman tweet. I think it goes back to the Juan Soto trade. Since 2021, the Yankees have traded 29 top 30 prospects. And you look at the list, and there's really only one I would say that you truly regret. And even that.
And I don't even know if you really regret.
It's just like, oh, he's good now. Ezekiel Duran, right? Duran's good. I think Glenn Otto's been nice for Texas as well. So the Gallo trade's probably the one that hurts the most because you gave up Duran, you gave up Otto, and Gallo was such a flop here. And then I like Jansen Junk, had a fun name, was a cool little pitcher. He's been, whatever since he's left the Yankees. But, I mean, you look at this long list, guys that were hyped up. Hoyjun Park, right, was a guy that was hyped up for a while, and really nothing ever came of it. Ken Waldichuk had a tough year with Oakland, where a lot of these guys that the Yankees prospects that got hyped up really haven't been anything. And I think it reinforces the idea of, sell high on these prospects. You can acquire known qualities, and that a lot of times is a lot more valuable than the unknown of prospects.
It was something that Brian Cashman discussed in his availability at the GM meetings a couple months back that got him a lot of heat from the Yankee fan base, but he really talked up the Yankees player development department and how much he values the people within the organization who help out in their player development. Well, look at the Yankees. They always find a way to acquire really good players, and to do that, opposing teams ask for these kinds of prospects, these pitchers that they're able to develop and get through their minor league system. And with that, they've acquired a lot of talent by pulling off these trades, and they haven't amounted to much at the major league level, so it hasn't bit the Yankees at all. But their minor league development system and their player development, it's been strong enough to the point where they're able to get really good players like Juan Soto. They were able to use Drew Thorpe in this trade for Soto, and there's countless others that you can go to as well.
Think about how much the perception on Thorpe, Vasquez, and Brito changed from the beginning of 2023 to where we are now, where especially Brito and Vasquez, what they showed in the season, the way they were developed, the public perception of them from a league-wide standpoint has completely changed.
I think Thorpe, too. If this was a conversation, a trade that happened last year, I don't even know if Drew Thorpe's name would even come up. I didn't even know who he was, to be honest, until like early on last year when I heard he was doing really well. And then he just had one of the best seasons for a Yankees minor league pitcher that we've seen in a while. But, I'm kind of torn on this because I love when they develop talent. I love like a Volpe, a Judge. I love when they do that because I like looking at how the Dodgers have built their teams recently. They have developed an unbelievable amount of talent while also signing Shohei Ohtani's. I don't even need to list anymore. They've signed. We all know being able to sign a Freddie Freeman and a Mookie Betts while also having some unbelievable talent.
Right.
Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, guys that have gone through the Dodgers system that one has a contract that's almost $350 million. The other is going to get something very similar to that. And they came through the Dodgers system. I'd love for the Yankees to take talent like this and, develop it this way. But it's worked out for the most part so far. If we're talking about them getting Juan Soto now, I'm just, Trace Sweeney, to me, we were talking about this before we hopped on. No spot in this team. Really didn't have a spot for 2 years before he was even drafted. Volpe was a first-round pick 2 years before Sweeney was. They're like the same age. So it's just like, I look at guys like Trey Sweeney, I'm just like, why did we even draft him? Why did we burn the pick on him?
I think it is the philosophy.
It's just like, the
Yankees take the best available player.
Because usually when they pick, they're at that point in the first round.
And so I think that becomes part of it. And I don't think they predicted that Volpe was going to progress as well as he did. Right?
I agree with that too. Yeah,
but you're right. Like Sweeney, there wasn't much of a future here, and you look at Vivas, a guy that made it to AAA last year. I think is closer to being MLB ready. Than Trey Sweeney was, and maybe there's a spot for him on the MLB roster as a depth piece that. I don't think they're going to trade Gleyber Torres, but if you ever go down that line, Vivas is a second baseman.
They always seem like they.
He's always interested.
I think that's something we could touch on briefly here because I'm not saying that Vivas is going to take Gleyber's spot, or anybody for that matter. But I think Gleyber here, in a way, is kind of being like, I don't want to say pushed out, but him re-signing or extending looks so much more difficult we're deciding over Soto or Torres now at this point.
You have to decide whether...
And if they sign Yamamoto too?
Yeah,
exactly. There's a lot of financial decisions that the Yankees would have to make because the contract for Soto is going to be immense, and we're looking at
Yamamoto's is going to be $300 apparently now. That's the floor.
John Boy did bring it on the Yamamoto standpoint because obviously they're pretty closely connected with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and it seems like they're going to be one of the favorites. The Dodgers deferring all that money to Ohtani
leaves a
lot of room for Yamamoto to sign there.
Yeah.
I know a lot of Yankee fans are dreaming of Yamasoto, that combination. Even if they don't get him, the Yankees are going to have to spend money on starting pitching. It'd be really nice for that money to go to Yamamoto. So I think either way, money gets tough there. What I do want to end on, because I think we're in a neat spot right now, is think back last year where Yankee fans were at with Hal and Brian Cashman, and you had fire Cashman chance. You had fire Cashman day, right? Was it that?
Kind of.
They tried to do like this Oakland reverse boycott.
It was like an advertisement on Twitter, and I don't think it really amounted to anything.
You had a lot of conversations
funny, though.
online and within the Yankee fan base where people were upset with Brian Cashman, and then he had that crazy media day where
I still don't know what that was.
Like he kind of went crazy, and threw a bunch of people under the bus, and was like, "I think we're pretty good, honestly." And then you just have all these conflicting quotes. After Brian Cashman probably being at his lowest in public image with the Yankees, he goes out, he trades for Soto, he gets Verdugo. Goodbye, Fordham graduate Greg Weissert, I guess.
Yeah.
But You get Verdugo on what seems to be a pretty favorable trade. Where are you guys at on Cashman right now? Because it's been an up and down relationship, and how much time did he just buy himself with the Yankees? Not how much time. How much leniency did he buy himself with the fan base?
I think we'll get the answer to that question in April or May.
When they lose their first game of the season?
It's all going to come down to how they played during the season. So, really, yeah, that's what it's going to come down to.
Where are you at with him personally?
For now, I think he's definitely changed his image and reputation around in the fact that he's kind of reminding people that he is a good executive, where he is able to negotiate well with A.J. Preller of the San Diego Padres, because they had talked about Soto dating back to the trade deadline, and at that point the Padres decided we're not going to move him, but they did mention that from those conversations the Yankees were able to kind of get an idea of who San Diego would be interested in, what they would need to make a trade happen, and then they revisit it in the offseason, and they're able to get a deal done pretty quickly. So I think Brian Cashman did what he needed to do to start this offseason. Now, if he gets Yamamoto, great. If not, he's going to have to pivot and try to see what he can do to add to this starting pitching. Do you bring back a Frankie Montas, perhaps? Do you look elsewhere in the pitching market? We'll have to see. But I think Brian Cashman, I think Yankee fans will ease off of him. For now, he's not public enemy number one anymore. But, yeah, like I said, it's all going to come down to how the on-field product is on the field. And if it's bad, again, then he's going to draw a lot of heat. But that's what comes with the job.
This is what I think about Cashman right now. I'm going to go a little further than April that he bought himself to. If this team is bottomed out by May, by April, if we're having like this conversation where are they going to be over 500, kind of like how they were the entire last year, I don't see how we can keep going forward here. I give him the trade deadline. Why do I say that? Because this team, as it stands right now, obviously if you miss out on Yamamoto, that's fine. You could still pivot. We got Marcus Stroman out there, Frankie Montas. There's still plenty of names that they can pivot to fill out this rotation if they need to.
I would love if they would trade for Glasnow.
Glasnow is another one. There's tradable. Giolito is still out there. Jordan Montgomery.
Monty. Yep.
I'm blanking on who I was just thinking about. What's his name? Oh my gosh. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It may come back, but there's plenty of arms out there at the Yankees. Oh, Jack Flaherty. You could take a flyer on someone on Jack Flaherty who had Cy Young votes in the past and is just not the same guy. Give him to Matt Blake. See what you can do with him. They can pivot. I say the trade deadline for Brian Cashman, because if the Yankees are in a position to make themselves the best team in July, right now, we could talk all we want about how good they look against all these other American League teams. If by July, if another trade deadline comes and the consensus is we're good with what we got, but we can't beat the Baltimore Orioles, we can't beat the Tampa Bay Rays, and we can't beat the Houston Astros, that's it for me. That from me personally. If they do not do what they are saying right now for this offseason, and what that is, go out for 2024, that's going to be at the deadline, too. You're going to make all this noise now. When the trade deadline comes, you got to make another move, because there's going to be a move that is going to need to be made. And if Brian Cashman doesn't put his foot down in July, it's going to be tough to see what October could look like. And then, obviously, if he loses Soto, he's not going to be in a good standing with the fans. So hopefully they have a good season. For me personally, on where I'm at with Cashman, it's just we ball. That's where I'm at. You got Juan Soto. You just saved the worst season of the three of our lives in New York Yankees history. Very fortunate that we could say that.
82,
so
80.
I'm at let's ball. Let's go in for 2024. You went out. You made your big move. Let's see the excitement. Let's have fun.
My biggest gripe with Cashman the last few years is not really the moves that he has made. I think when he makes trades, they're usually pretty good. I think he's excellent at finding, guys under the radar. You think of like a Clay Holmes trade, a Wandy Peralta trade. We can have conversations about Joey Gallo or Sonny Gray or whatever. I think those are unique situations where he's probably picked a couple of the wrong guys, the IKF trade. But I think for the most part, my biggest issue with Cashman is not when he makes a move, it's when he doesn't make a move. And it's his lack of action, and I think his misassessing of the roster and where it's at. So far, it seems like Cashman has at least had a wake-up call that, yeah, this roster isn't where it needed to be. Everything's not okay. We can't rest on the roster that we've been running at the last few years. Needed to shake things up, needed to make a big splash. They've done that. Will, I think you said it pretty well that, if we get halfway through the season at the trade deadline and the Yankees aren't one of the best teams in the league, that probably means that there's another move to be made. But to me, is this a one-time thing? Is it, hey, Juan Soto was there and we needed to get him, but this is maybe away from the norm, or this is not something that we're going to do consistently, or is he going to be this aggressive moving forward? Because if he falls back into, I think, lack of action and then resting in complacency, then I think you're going to see a lot of these complaints start to resurface. But I think right now, Brian Cashman appeased a lot of fans and definitely appeased me. This is a move that I think a lot of Yankee fans felt like he had to make, and credit to him, he made the move.
He made the move. The Yankees are in a better position now than they were a couple weeks ago. So now it just comes down to, can they execute on the field? Can everybody stay healthy? Can everything go right after a year where everything went wrong? So I'm definitely very excited to watch what the Yankees have to offer in 2024. I'm sure the entire fan base is as well. And yeah, they're really going for it this upcoming season. We don't know whether Juan Soto is here for the long run or not, but we know that the Yankees, they have the pieces on offense to get where they want to be in 2024. If they can upgrade that pitching just a little bit more, they should be one of the favorites to win the World Series next year, but we'll have to wait and see.
They made like I said before, I got this from Ryan Gregoire, actually. They made their biggest weakness probably their most valuable or second most valuable asset on their team in left field. So, like I said, let's ball. Let's see what they have. Let's see it. If they don't get Yamamoto, it's not a loss. They got Juan Soto. They, like we've been hinting, they can fill that pitching void in a lot of different ways. Yamamoto would be very, very insane to get if you're the Yankees. I mean, you're really putting your foot down in that scenario. So go out there and get that trophy, man. Go out there and win that World Series.
We're still a few months away before any of us need to go to Yankee Stadium and actually watch these guys play, but maybe you'll hear from us again if they get Yamamoto, if they make another big move. I'm sure we'll reconvene and break it down. But until then, for Brian Rabacs, for Will Tallant, I'm Lou Orlando. This has been a production of FUV Sports. Let's ball.